So let me then continue. Now that you guys saw this, let me continue with the rest of this training, which is essentially how we manage uParts. So every shop, I just set one up in our beta environment called Perfect Collision, has a profile page where they can log in, where you guys have to make sure that all of their systems are working properly and all their configurations and so forth are properly set up. This Perfect Collision shop that I've set up has been installed on Phobos, which is our server, and is accessible because you can see that it's not red. So this has given us a heartbeat at 10:06 last time on December 8th. You see that? So this means that it's live. If you look at all the other ones, because this is a demo and a account that we use for demo, every time we've installed it on different machines, if it's gone, if that installation is gone, you don't see a heartbeat anymore, and that's why these turn red. So one of the things that shops could complain about is if they're not getting their estimates is, hey, I'm not getting any estimates. That comes up here, and it should show that, hey, the estimates are not uploading because Estimate Analyzer is not active. So this is the part that you guys have to learn how to configure Estimate Analyzer properly and effectively. So it grabs all the estimates. Remember, we're back into this screen. From the computer where Ultimate is installed, or CCC or AutoText, and submits it to uParts. That screen is here. So you open up the shop's profile, you go under the profile, you come to Estimate Analyzer, and then you click on a copy of the Estimate Analyzer. So this goes back to Rose's question again. What if they're multiple, right? If I go to our live environment, you'll see that many times there are multiple estimates folders that we're monitoring, and they will show up under each Estimate Analyzer right here, or under just their own folder within each Estimate Analyzer. So here, we've built some pretty interesting information base here. Here it tells us what is the version of the Windows that they're running, what is the name of the machine, and what is the build number, how much memory that machine has, and what's the username that's logged on into that machine. If you guys are familiar with EMS pumps, you probably know that none of them have this kind of sophisticated information available. It helps a lot when you're trying to ask the shop, which user are you, which machine are you on, what version of Windows you have. All that information is at your fingertips because Estimate Analyzer submits it to us on a regular basis when it's running on that machine. Okay. So this is one thing to check, and then you come and see the status of Estimate Analyzer, which is right here. The status should be running. If it says down or inactive, this will turn yellow, and after 10 minutes it will turn red, as you saw in the previous screen. It will have the current login date. When was the last time they logged in? So we logged into that machine around 10:04. Last heartbeat is at 10:17, so a minute or so ago. And then what folder is being serviced? And it says the folder scanning service is also active. Now, that's why you see in this folder, actually, by the way, we don't have any folders being scanned here on the user's computer. Another feature that we have, guys, is we allow you as the TAC or the technical service support behind all of our shops to go and configure the folders to collect this information without ever stepping foot at the shop or asking them to connect to you remotely or do any sort of screen sharing and so forth. So this can be made enabled from a distance using our control panel, which is where we're at right now, for that given shop, for that particular Estimate Analyzer and installation base. Now, the way we set this up is we go into what's called the management mode. Management mode says, here, allow me to start interacting with the user's computer. So if I go to management mode, it will give me about 5 minutes to do what I want to do. and it starts communicating much more regularly with the computer. Instead of sending a heartbeat every minute, which would be too long to do this, I can now go and start creating all this information by setting up a path, checking it, setting up folders and so forth with the computer on the other side. And one way to do it is I can come up here and I can actually look at the folder where the scan needs to take place. So I can type in the folder and so forth here. Let me make it, give you guys the view from the shop as well. So if I go log into the shop, in this case our Phobos test machine, let's see if you guys see that screen. So here's Mitchell. Yeah, here's Ultimate. And we have to now set up a folder, right? So that folder should be obviously the same as Ultimate. So if I close this, and if I go into the system preferences, under File, Export, and EMS Import Export, I'll see that everything is being exported to Mitchell, CCOM Mitchell Export, right? So I have to start reading that for Mitchell if this button, Mitchell Parts, is not active. So because we have activated Mitchell Parts, and because now we have direct integration with Mitchell Ultimate, you guys don't have to worry about this export of EMS. You just click here, and the system automatically sends all the parts that are on the screen to us and allows us to display this nice dialog box that says, okay, let's go ahead and choose whoever is my supplier and place an order with them right here. So this is an important point. Because of this integration, the folders that we saw here on the back end from uParts is blank. Because Phobos only has one estimating system, happens to be Ultimate, and it's the Ultimate where all the parts are being submitted to us using the Mitchell Parts interface. I want to make sure everyone is very clear on what this means and what the implications are for the shops using the system.
So the question then, Alex, so we can be crystal clear on this. I think we all understand that when you hit the button here, it creates the export. That's where uParts is picking it up. What about when you're using a different estimating solution? What would be that workflow scenario there?
Very good. So that's why, and that's a great question. You guys are asking really good questions today. Is this. So let's set up a folder and call it CCC EMS folder, right? And it's right here. And let's see how can now this shop, which is Perfect Collision, when I click on it, I'm here, I'm logged in, and it tells me that it's Perfect Collision and I can send parts. But what if Perfect Collision had CCC as well, and its file from CCC was being stored in this folder, CCC EMS folder? That's where Estimate Analyzer comes into play, and that's why we have to include Estimate Analyzer with Ultimate. If you click on the icon of Estimate Analyzer, this green icon, you'll see that Estimate Analyzer is green, but if you go to read any files, it says there's no files here. It says EMS path file is missing. So the way we set it up is two ways. If you're at the shop setting them up, you can click here and get them set up. It'll pop it right up. Or if you're not at the shop and you're logging in from the back end, you can do it right here by creating a new folder, So let's do it here first, the scenario where we're at the shop. You click on this folder, you go to computer, to the whatever path is set up. We set up CCC MS folder, you say okay, and you say save. Done. You're done. So now the CCC estimates start flowing to uParts as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, if I go back here, and if this is working from Phobos, if I refresh my cloud-based interface, you see there's no EMS folder configured here. Look what happens. Boom. I have an EMS folder that is configured now as of December 8th today at 10:25, a minute ago, and it's ready to go. So I start reading CCC's estimates as well.
Okay. Yeah. What you can do it remotely.
Yeah.
Okay, now right now, so if we wanted to, we could say, okay, let's go to ITEX and add it from here.
That's exactly where I was going. So let's now do it for AutoText, but for AutoText, let's set it up, the folder. Actually, I think even the folder, the folder has to exist on the shop's computer, right? So let's call this one AutoText, EMS folder. This one will do from the back end. So I'm here now. I've already set up my CCC. I believe the way I have to do this is I can either go here and create a new folder, or I can come here and say, let's see, import folder list. Yes. So I go to management mode, and I will say import folder list, which says, well, I'm sorry, this is not it. So let me tell you what import folder list is. If I have folders that are available from another estimate analyzer that I want to bring here, I use import folder list. Remember, this was the list of all the other. This helps if you set up your estimate analyzer on one shop, and now when you want to go on one computer at a shop and you want to go set it up on the other computer, you can do it here. But that's not what we wanted to do. What we want to do is we want to create a new folder. And the way to create a new folder is by typing the path here by saying // AutoText EMS folder and say save. So now we just created a folder for AutoText as well on the back end.
Yeah, sorry, Alex, we're having just a little quick roundtable conversation here about paths, right? And I know this is a lesson you've learned as well, but the problem is there is no frigging standard, and IT guys set them up all over the place. So trying to figure out how to do this free isn't so elegant, because in some cases you're going to call the shop, they're going to have to call their IT guy, they're going to have to get permissions, yada, 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 yada.
Sure. So the way we typically do it, guys, is
we're not going to roll up anybody's estimate or not to start. So that's part of the connect is when we'll start getting the third party.
Tom, that is not going to work.
I have a list. All right, sorry. So I'll figure that out. Alex said that won't work. So can we sidebar that one? Let's sidebar that one first, because it doesn't really have anything to do with training. So we can just everybody's time. Alex, we know your time is very precious. So.
Thank you. You guys have to realize that majority of the shops that have Mitchell also have CCC. If we go to these guys and say you can use CCC, they're going to say, okay, here's the door. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we have to configure CCC as well, and I'll show you guys how to. Speaking of paths, since you guys said paths are important, we need to have the path available to us. Look what we've done here. This is another thing that you guys should find very impressive. Again, without being at the shop, I just got the path information on both drives on that computer. There's a C and then there is a D. That's why this interactive mode needs to be turned on, because it's now talking to Estimate Analyzer and saying, what are the folders that you have, and guess what? It shows all the folders that we have. And you can now go and select these folders and choose them as the default folder to look for CCC or AutoText or any other estimates. Imagine how nice that is, to be able to do that from a distance without ever stepping foot again into the shop.
Mm-hmm. Nice, Alex.
Okay. So far so good. We're good here with as far as what's going on with the estimate analyzer and how the path gets set up and so forth.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. One other feature that we have that's unique to us, guys, is this little link. So if the shop is saying their estimate analyzer is having an issue and it's not working, not coming up, you can click this little link and it will reboot the estimate analyzer at the shop on their location. With
Does it basically, estimate analyzer, Alex, I'm going to assume it's a service, and all that's doing is restarting the service, is that right?
Sure.
Being way too
actually not quite. Good point, but not quite. Estimate Analyzer is either a service or an executable, and this restarts both of them. A service goes on the server, and executable goes on the workstation and the desktop.
Gotcha. All right. I knew I messed it up technically.
No, but you actually asked a very good question. And that's why, guys, speaking of that, here you see two links. You see a link for the GUI, which is the one that goes to the desktop and to the workstations, and then you see one that's a service. So you have to install the right one if you are to do it for. So if they say, oh, my servers are in the back room and here's the server, you will install the service copy. If they say I need to run it on my workstation, this is the good news. The Mitchell Parts installation will install it for them at their desktop. So you don't need to install this. It automatically gets installed for them. Okay? Now,
again, not being hugely technical, but I'll ask. You would use the server setup in a peer-to-peer on that server computer?
On a peer-to-peer. I don't know what that means.
Well, a peer-to-peer network where one of the workstations is actually acting as the server?
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. So what you're referring to is a standard domain name controller versus what Microsoft calls a what does Microsoft call it? You have a domain name controller, and so I see what you mean by peer-to-peer. No.
Again, we can take it offline. I just want to make sure we install the right one in that environment.
Yeah.
Right?
So the question whether it's a service or a standard desktop / workstation is whether or not they log off of that server and leave it running in the background. Okay. If they log off, then it should be a service. Because if you install the executable, guess what happens? The executable gets terminated when they log off. Services keep running. You follow me?
Yes.
So if there is a workstation where, like in Phobos, if I have a executable running, which I do now, if I say log off, that executable will terminate. But if it is a service and I log off, the executable will continue running. And that's why we have both versions depending on what environment we're setting up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we're fine, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, so these things will flesh out as soon as you start playing around and go into a few of the shops and so forth.
Yeah, I just didn't want to stand there with a blank look on my face when it happened.
No, so that's, I'm glad you asked the question. Yeah, so the service, if they have a server in the back room that nobody sits at and it's usually logged out, although running, you go with a service. If there is a workstation where people are logged into all the time and they're working, you go with a GUI. Furthermore, the GUI, which is the executable, also gets installed whenever I install Mitchell Parts.
Yeah.
Which has already happened here. By the way, if I click here now, you'll notice that both paths are set up here. It's scanning EMS folder for CCC and EMS folder for Autotech. It's both running. And I can actually look to see what estimate is already read, which is right here as well. And here's another thing for the last point on the estimate analyzer. I can actually look at the list of things that is read from the back end as well. You see that?
Yes, sir.
They're all here. Okay. So far so good. We have now the ability to set up Estimate Analyzer and what we call uLibrary on a shop's desktop. And the desktop here has Mitchell Parts, which is the links that I've shared with Tom and Neve and all those guys that will be available for you guys to update this. So Mitchell Parts and Estimate Analyzer get functional on a workstation. Now, once this is set up, what happens is you also have to set up the users. The users have a number of different roles that you can help set up. So you go to the roster, you'll see a list of all the users that are configured, and you go into the right user and say, okay, here, if that user is an administrator or a staff, what is their login status? They're active. You can terminate them by changing that here and marking them as inactive, and then saving. They'll become inactive. You can also keep track of how well trained they are. Are they trained? Do they have a basic overview? Are they advanced or are they experts? Their name and phone number and IDs are here. And here's another important piece that you guys should know. What is this user doing? Should this user receive emails? It explains this a little bit here. Should they receive it when they generate an order? When an order is responded? Should they get comments? Should they get questions? Should they get PPI alerts? And should I get vault responses? All these have to be configured for the user. Any questions?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask this question, right? I would assume by default they're all blank, right?
Correct.
Okay. So in your experience, right, and I use this as our experience with the repair center, and I'm talking about just the user type, and then I'll get to the email preference. But what the user type at the top when you were up there, staff versus admin, right?
Yes.
What were you guys finding? Was everybody just being set up as admin, and that's the way it was left? I mean, that's what we've seen traditionally with the repair center. That's why.
It can be, but if you make them staff, they don't have access to change preferred suppliers or view estimate analyzer and so forth. That's what they do.
Which is hugely important when we're talking about a parts guy, right?
Sure.
A parts guy is going to have to be the admin because he's normally going to be the guy managing the preferred supplier.
That's correct.
Right?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. And then down to the email one, what were your lessons in the email preferences? Was it pretty much just set it up as just select them all, which is kind of what you have here?
So this is my account, and that's why everything is selected, right? But typically, if you have an estimator, you want to be able to receive the responses to the order.
Yeah.
Right? So when they place an order, they want to get a response back in an email. You check this on. Comments, if somebody makes a comment to an estimator saying this part is delayed or this and that, you want them to get the comment, or, you know, what color is it, or if it's checkered or whatever, you want to get that. Questions, comments, we separated them. PPIs, remember another thing we have is called PPI alert. That, and then vaults. When people respond to vaults manually, you want them to get it. That's for an estimator. Then we have an orderer, so someone may write an estimate, but someone else may place the order. You can check all these off. And then we have a fallback. Fallback says, listen, we tried to find the estimator, the account was no longer active. We try to find an orderer, the account is no longer active. We go to the last person available, and that's the fallback. And then always means just send them the emails all the time. So you can check that on for everyone that you want. So maybe...
Where did we identify the difference between an estimator and an orderer? Maybe I missed that.
Sure. So that's of course, good question again. The identification happens on who clicks the order button. So let me go back to my favorite slide. The estimator writes an estimate, we generate the bundle. Here's the bundle, right? This estimator could be Willis. But if Alex goes and places the order, now the estimator is Willis, but the orderer is Alex.
So in Ultramate, under the uParts, under the Mitchell Parts button, how would that be differentiated? I'm not sure how that would work.
What would happen is Willis is the estimator, and because he clicked order, he's the orderer as well. That's it. Right?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I know you're looking at the uPart page here. I'm thinking about the Ultramate screen, and I think, if I understand what you're saying, I'm logged in as Willis in Ultramate, and I hit that button, right?
Sure.
And it knows Willis ordered it. If it was on a different workstation and Swan was logged in, and he happened to go to that estimate and hit that button, he would be considered the orderer because he wasn't the estimator by name in Ultramate?
That's exactly the case, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yeah. It's who wrote the estimate versus who ordered the parts.
So the estimator field and login in Ultramate. Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, No, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
The follow-up to that would be, and I know here we have the estimator email because you had that above as we set up the employee. Where was the fallback email provided?
So fallback is not some person. What this is saying is all these notifications that are generated by our system should go back to people when those people are either estimators, orderers, or they're specified as fallback.
And I guess what I'm asking is where are they specified? Sorry, Alex.
So they're not specified. Let me tell you what that means. So Tron is the estimator. He writes an estimate with 5 parts. Willis places an order. And that order goes to Champion Chevrolet, right?
Okay.
Now, Tron and Willis are no longer with the company. Their account is disabled.
That's likely.
What happens is, when the response from Champion Chevrolet comes, we go try to send it to Tron, we say he's not available. We try to send it to Willis, we say he's not available. Then we send it to the person who's designated as the fallback, to Tom. So Tom now gets the message.
Yeah, and I think I understand that. I guess where I'm a little disconnected is how does it know Tron's email address if it wasn't in this part of the configuration, or the fallback email address that wasn't part of the configuration?
Very good. Very good. The way it knows it is, if this would be Tron, let's say Tom, we say Tom is fallback, right? This would be Tom Butch, and it would say Thomas.Butch@Mitchell.com, our fallback guy. And when we set up Tom in the system, we would only specify him as a fallback.
Okay, there it is. That's what it's looking for. So when you're creating each user, right, if you only specify them, okay, so it goes back to, in all cases, we would select all of these.
If you want everybody to, the person to be a fallback, right? Sometimes the managers say, listen, I don't care who orders, who's the fallback, I want to receive everything all the time. That's how this works.
Yeah, no.
Right?
Yeah, no, that helps. That explained it right there, Alex, for where I think we are with it, so thank you.
Okay, good, good. Tom, do you like to be a fallback?
Tom walked out, so
okay.
That's great. Let's send him all of those.
All the fallbacks are going to. So I refreshed my page and we're back to that, so we're good. You can also specify that this person is the part manager at the shop, which helps direct all the part-specific questions and so forth to the parts manager. So this is it. We also have a capability that we don't use much, but you can actually set up the users as to receive SMS messages as well. So I can say, you know, if I put a phone number 310-766-3663, I can get, you know, messages that now this activates, and I have to specify what's my provider, and if I say Sprint, I get text messages every time there is, you know, a trigger on those two. But we don't use that right now, so we don't have to worry about it right now. Vault request, customer names. Some people were saying we don't want our customer names to appear on the bundle, so we were checking this off. So you can turn it, and then chat is the ability for them to chat with different providers using this chat capability, which we're not using right now, but as we grow and we have more and more suppliers on standby, they can use chat as well.
Sure.
Okay? Now, last but not least is this capability, which allows an individual from one shop to gain access to another shop's estimates. Very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In the scenario where you may have 3 shops but a centralized parts procurement, warehousing, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
That's exactly right. And if you do that, then when they go to the production dashboard, they will see their 3 shops listed here. Sometimes it's, you know, fixed auto. If they have 3 fixed autos, you know, all 3 of them will show up right there. That's how that works.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we covered so far the roster, the estimate analyzer. The shop overview is fairly straightforward. It just says the name, address of the shop, their phone number, and so forth, and then geolocation, which says what is their longitude, latitude, and address, and so forth, which we have here. So all of these can be adjusted. Geolocation, by the way, gets calculated automatically. You know, if you click here, we just go to Google and it calculates it for us. So all that is here, and you can change. No questions here. It's pretty straightforward. Time zone, Los Angeles for now, but we can change the time zone when we go to Canada and other areas as well. So we can save all that. Next thing that's important, guys, is supplier preferences, which says for every make, what is the supplier that should be the preferred supplier for that shop?
Alex, can I take a step back real quick? Sorry, it's
Sure.
a little late about the password. We kind of went over that at the bottom. That password screen under the roster at the very bottom, should we make the assumption that gets populated because of Mitchell Connect?
No, it's better than that. That gets populated because of SSO, which is the single sign-on that we've built and deployed between us and Mitchell.
Okay, so this, and again, I'll talk to Tom. I'm not sure how that single sign-on gets fed. Right?
So initially, that's a very good question, Willis. Initially, your IT folks are going to give us a list of all the 400 shops that we're going live with, and we will configure that in our system where now, based on the Connect single sign-on, all these individuals can now log into uParts as well.
Okay. What does that list contain? Alex, Brian, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you heard that. Did you hear what Brian asked?
Yeah, so that list is essentially a list of all of your shops and all of the users that allows us to enable them to log into uParts with their Mitchell Connect credentials.
Okay. So about half of the customers probably have a Mitchell Connect login now, one per shop. So we're really limited so how we get them decide to get a username and password for Connect for themselves if they never had one, and for everyone in their shop, it's going to be a challenge.
That's something you have to talk to Robbie and Tom and me. Those guys said they've already had it and they can give us a list of all the shops for Mitchell Connect.
Okay, we'll take that off to those guys. Thank you for explaining that, though.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure, again, we don't want to go in and set up a user under the roster and create a password that I would assume would get overridden by the single sign-on and confuse the customer by about what their password is.
Actually, the way we've set this up, I believe that whatever password you give them in uParts, single sign-on still allows them to get logged in.
Okay.
Because single sign-on says, is this a valid Mitchell user? And then it gives us a token that tells uParts, allow them to sign on. And we allow them to sign on as long as you guys say they're valid. Done.
I'll check for these five just to yeah, so the question to Alex for the five that we hope you do next week, we don't have the list. Would we simply come in and set those folks up here? I mean, that sounds like what we need to do.
You could. If you don't have a list and if you don't have the single sign-ons available with this, you probably would want to do that just to get them started. Do you know who they are?
I think we're still working on that right now. We haven't nailed it down 100%. Hope to have that tomorrow.
All right. Okay. When you do, you can always give us the supplier list, by the way, as well, which is what we need in order to share with you who are the and set up the account with all the suppliers, which is, by the way, where I'm going next. So anyway, if you make changes here, guys, I forgot to say that. If you make changes here and leave the password blank, nothing changes. But if you do enter a new password and save, it will update their password for uParts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Another thing to remember is this little link sometimes is useful. Because you guys, as staff of Mitchell, will have administrative super user accounts that can log into anyone's users. But sometimes if you want to mimic that user, you can log into your Mitchell account and then come here and say login as user. It will convert your login right now to the user that you're viewing login. Right? So now you can debug and see what their system is doing that may not manifest itself under your account.
Perfect. Kelly and the support folks just gave a 2 thumbs up.
Good. Thank you. So that's one. The other one to note is, again, back here is the suppliers. So we typically have a spreadsheet that I've shared with Tom, I believe, that has a list of all the suppliers guys available that you guys want to then take and ask the shop to tell you what is the Acura supplier, who is the Buick supplier, Audi, and so forth, and just add them one by one. And once they're added, they will show up as preferred suppliers. Or you can come here later and modify by adding a new one. So you can say, hey, I want to add an Audi. I just noticed there was no Audi there. And if you start typing A, all the Audis will show up, or if you put the word or whatever, and you can say Audi Escondido, you can select the salesperson if you want, and you can say save. So now they have an Audi dealer as well under this shop.
Yeah, one question then, Brian, go ahead. Sorry. So are you saying that if we roll out in Orange County, everyone will see all the vendors, but what we need to do is then select which one is the preferred for OE?
That's correct. So if I go back here, Brian, remember, if I come here, you see that all the suppliers are available here when I open this drop down, but then Audi Escondido, this happens to be Audi, lucky. But Audi Escondido that is just added becomes a preferred supplier. That's it.
So if we have that list, we can supply it to you. You'll go into their profile and set up their preferred vendor for each of those. So when someone's on site, that's already done. Now we just go ahead and start ordering parts.
That's exactly right.
Okay, perfect. We were concerned that we were going to have to get all of the vendors. The question now is just let us know who your preferred OE vendors are, which is obviously a much shorter list.
That's exactly right, yes. And here, if I choose Audi again, just so you guys know, if there are 2 Audi suppliers, and if I say here, let me select another Audi, and if I say A again, Audi of, we added a Escondido, is there anyone else in your area? I don't know.
What's that, Diener Audi? Did you see that?
Diener, let's see. How do you spell it? There you go, Diener Audi, yeah. We have most of these guys in our system, and Bill Tipoda, I don't know if you know him, is there. So if I add him here right now, if I go back to Phobos, I mean, this is the beauty of a cloud-based system, already there should be now 2 preferred suppliers right here. See? Oh, Diener was in Great Neck, New York.
Yeah.
That's...
we were... Yeah, I'm not going to go there. I'll get in trouble.
Okay. So, there's our suppliers. And, by the way you can... also, another thing you can do is you can change the order of which one shows up on top. Remember, Diener was on the bottom, and Escondido was on top. So you can move it around by changing the preference as well.
Okay. Remove it.
Or remove it. You just click on this little icon, which is for delete. Not a good icon, I admit. I didn't put that in there, but that's the
That's an ugly trash can. We need to get away.
I know, it doesn't even look like a trash can, but yeah. We can, and you can also edit it here too. You can change the the counter person's name and so forth, and you can do all that here as well.
Can we talk to that while you're there real quick, Alex? I know you're probably going to show, the addition screen. But I think one of the questions comes up around discount markup, right? And how that populates through the system. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you, but...
No. So we currently, this is a touchy subject with us, right? Yeah. Whenever you talk with shops about what's your discount and stuff, they don't necessarily want to divulge it, right? So currently our system, other than calculating savings for vaults, doesn't really look at the discounts and the rebates. It doesn't.
Okay.
But you're more than welcome to come and actually set up their discounts for them. If they're a good shop and they see the benefits, and then we can calculate their bulk and savings and so forth for them effectively. But right now, it's not a requirement. It's an optional field for us. And that's why you saw it.
We don't have a problem collecting that data, do we? I think we can get that on the setup.
Yeah. So if you get it.
But we get it for our shop management customers. I'm not sure about net.
Right. We knew that too. We knew that. And one of the things we have to do, guys, is for the shop management customers, we have to figure out an import process where all this information is imported automatically into our system.
Yeah, fair enough. And we'll work with John when we get to the repair center piece of that.
Okay.
It's all in the database for repair center.
Got it. So you have some preferences here on the preferences tab.
Sorry, Alex. Bob, was there a question there? I think I heard Bob. I saw the button API access.
So API access, remember we have level 1, level 2, and level 3. API access is for these suppliers when they become automatic with us. And right now, the one you'll see here is this one, which is Keystone. With Keystone, we have to get a code and we have to validate them and we have to get them to API access, which then will generate vaults for them automatically and pull their inventory data and so forth automatically. But with majority of these, we don't have that. So that's why you don't see it there.
Yeah, so again, Alex, not to just paraphrase what you said, but so when we get a Honda dealer that wants to go level 3, we would get them into API. That would generate the code, which gives us the interface, and it's just a CDK, and we could read all that information.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's where it's when you would refer them to us then, right? That's because we're doing the sales on the supply side. So if there's a Honda dealer and now we have 150 shops in LA using the system, you go to the Honda dealer and say, look, here's the all of our shops, go level 3 with the uParts and you get access, and you get much more sales and all the, great efficiencies that an electronic system would afford you.
Yeah, so again, for the training team, Bob or Paul or Tuan, if anybody asks the question, the answer is simply, if we can get that supplier to level 3, we'll kick that over to our uPart counterparts, right, or change dev team, whatever you want to say, right, and we will work with them to get that interface so you get the benefit of having a direct interface to their dealer management system for procurement and visibility.
That is exactly right, yes. Well put.
Yeah.
Okay. So back here, there are some preferences that you can set up in here. You can say, we used to have this, I haven't seen this for a while, we haven't used it, but you could actually create an announcement that on top of their production dashboard will say, hey, there's a number of announcements we can set up and then we can display them however we want. You don't need to worry about this. That says, hey, we have a special going on, or to repair a fan and get $100 and some things like that. We can say whenever we get aftermarket parts, we want it to have no preference. We want it to prefer to have capital, or we want to have capital as a requirement.
And now, it's just to be sure for everybody, that's a global thing, not an individual vendor thing.
This is a per shop thing, not an individual vendor.
Yeah, but global for that shop.
Global for that shop. That's correct. That is correct. Yes. Yes. Now, PPIs, you guys remember seeing PPIs here? When PPIs flow back, look at this. It says $12. Why? Because the part prices, remember I showed this to you guys before. When we submitted this order, there is a part here for $200 probably, there you go, that went up to $212. That's why there's a PPI of $12. You see that?
Yep.
Now, this setting says, when do you want to report this PPI? If it's above $1 or $10, system-wide, we only report it if it's above $10. But you can override that. As a shop, if you're really frugal, you say, I want PPIs over $2 or $20, whatever you want, and then we only report those PPIs.
Yeah. And again, so reading the note next to that, it says, if price increase on a bundle that should be flagged. So it's consolidating everything in that bundle. It's not an individual line item. And the reason I say that, Alex, is the way Repair Center works is we only do the flag, right, or the voiding of that parts price change electronically per line, not per order.
Very good point. Very good point. You know your systems really well. So remember, I always say we look at the procurement holistically, right? We look at the whole bundle of parts. We look at the whole PPI of all the parts on a bundle, and that's why we have a flag that says, should I report this to the shop that there was sufficient PPI for them to do something, and the way we calculate that is based on this $10 total, you know? And a shop could say, I want it to be $50 before I'm bothered, right? Then they'll see only $50, not 10.
Sure.
EMS pushback. So this is not set to manual automatically because of what we discussed with Tom and Neve and all those guys. Why? Because now if you go to the bundle, in order to get the EMS information back to Ultimate, you have to click this button.
Correct.
We had a setting before where if we would do it automatically, every time a supplier would respond, we would do that automatically. We are now defaulting everything to manual.
Okay, so unless the shop agrees that they just want it to show up, it's going to be manual and they would hit the export button. Okay.
Yes, yes. And I think it's more than that, Willis, because the Ultimate system has to be able to manage all the changes, and even then we're saying, you're sending us too many changes. We can't consolidate them. We want to be able to bring in the changes only at a time when the whole thing goes through.
I gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So these are just some display settings that says, you know, some shop say, I want to when I send an order to a supplier, I want to use the customer name instead of my RO number. I don't want to divulge the RO number. I want to use the customer name.
So it gives some flexibility there.
Right, right.
Bob or Paul, you see any questions in there? No? No, that was pretty, I was already reading through it. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
Just one on the PPI. Does it show decreases also?
So it does show decreases, that is correct, but we don't warn the shop about the decreases. The same way that I went in here to look at a PPI and saw that there was a red $212, I'm opening up a different one. You see these are all red, so there's all these PPIs. Sometimes you see green, there isn't any on this one, and that's the PPD. So you can come here and see the green, but we don't alert it back in the production dashboard to the shop.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, good question again. Let me see, I'm trying to find one, but they're not that often that you see PPDs.
Yeah, no, we get it though, Alex. Yeah, there you go. Thank
Okay.
you.
So back here, there is a button that says check to allow rush orders. If I have this button checked on, when I go to place orders now, it gives me an option that says, hey, rush this order. Only for the more advanced shops we do that. So if I go back to here and open up one that has parts on it, this one doesn't. But let's open one that has some parts left. I have to do it this way. So if I say send order now, it will, rush order is not showing up here. Is this the same button? No, this is not by user. So I have to go log into under that shop when we just set that up. But you guys have seen it. There's a button that says, hey, rush this order. That's where you will see it. Okay, where were we? Administration.
All the way to the right.
All the way to the right. You're right. Okay. So here, we also have virtual orders. Let me edit this again so you see the options. We also have, where were we? Virtual orders. So quote submissions we no longer have. That's been replaced by vaults, which we will see coming further down. Virtual orders is when you place an order, if you want to turn it on, I don't know if you guys do or not, but sometimes shops just call and place an order, right? If they just call and place an order, they still want to keep track of when that order is going to show up and return it in uParts, so they send basically a fake order to that supplier that the supplier never receives, but because they've already filled it through the phone. That's what a virtual order is.
Yeah. So, and I would submit for the team that that's probably going to be selected at every store because they are going to, as they adopt and get used to it and make phone calls. So if it's not selected, you can get them in a loop where they can't get a part into the status that they want it to be, which is off the dashboard.
Sure. Very good point, Willis. But the question is, are they willing to go through the effort to actually send us a virtual order when they've put it in the phone? If they're diligent enough, they will. The shops that are diligent enough will.
I get your point. I mean, that's a good point, Alex. I mean, it's kind of Pavlov's dog, right? Leave it off and teach them to do it the right way.
Sure. Delivery notification API, this is a little advanced. This is for us to automatically generate a notification for them that these parts were delivered. That's only if the suppliers have the app that says that. So this is not active yet. So we don't need to worry about that. This just says the shops have access.
The first time we would see that, hopefully, though, would be with the aftermarket guys, right?
That's exactly right. If they're willing to use, by the way, it's not developed yet, but if we make an app that they can have on their phones that says they got delivery and then the delivery notification generates automatically. Instead of right now, as you know, where the shop has to come and say, hey, I got this part was delivered by coming here and saying shipment delivered.
Yeah.
Okay, this just gives them some reporting and enables some reporting for them to look at all the reporting and so forth. This is an interesting one, guys. This says if I order a part from Champion Chevrolet, and if that part is rejected from Champion, and I have a second preferred supplier, automatically send it to my second supplier.
Nice.
Now, this is something that we want to automate more and more, but this is just the first step. So if the shops, again, are advanced enough, and they're like, obviously, if the first supplier doesn't have it, send it to second, they can come here and turn on this rule, and it will send it to the second one.
I like it.
Here's another one that says vaults, has to do with vaults. It says they have to respond to vaults within this many hours, or this many, this should be the condition of the parts for the recycled vault request. Recycled only, same year or newer, you guys are familiar with this rule. And then this one is also a more advanced one that we don't have to worry about right now, but this is to whether maximize profit or savings, which we don't have to worry about at this point. Now, here's a couple of other rules, which says when you're sourcing after market parts automatically, can you replace an aftermarket part with an existing OEM? Or should it be only with other aftermarket parts, or with other recycled parts, or remanufactured parts? So if you only check this one, we only source an alternative aftermarket for the aftermarket. It has to do, guys, for you guys who know, with when they're going to use the sourcing, before or after they lock the estimate. If they lock the estimate and do this, the insurance company could get mad at them.
Alex, this is Wolf. I've got to run to another meeting. Brian and the rest of the team here. I'll be back as quick as I can.
No problem. We're almost done with this, so that's pretty much it for this portion of the setup and everything. So I think you guys got a pretty good overview, and I know we've gone a little bit over time.
Is that the last screen of the setup that you're looking at?
Yeah, it is. There's another one that's insurance preferences, which there isn't much in it. That's to exclude some of the data from the EMS if the insurance company wants, and this is internal notes. So if you want to add a private note for a perfect collision, you can add it here. That's pretty much it for all the setup.
So guess the next step, once you jump off Alex, is for Twan to kind of walk through how he knows the ordering parts with the train guys. But before that, can you give us any tips on lessons learned during the setup, like pitfalls, easy to miss things that we still set up properly, kind of fail points?
I have an onboarding document guide that I should share with you, which should help you. What are the things that we're looking to get from our shops when we onboard them? This is the document. So I'll send a copy of it. Tom has a copy of it, but this is the process that we go through typically.
Hey, any of those documents you said, Tom, that you think is appropriate to us, please send them to us. We haven't got them yet. We'll ask Tom for them, but if you're in there looking at them, just if you can get them to us, that's really going to be helpful.
Sure. No problem. We'll do that, and then we'll circle back next week with Twan again, and we can go through it with all of you guys and find out, what are the things that matters to these guys, and talk about, again, more lesson learned and how to approach these shops.
The other thing is bug. I know there's a kind of a bug that you guys are working on when a parts order is changed and getting it back into properly into Ultimate. Tom just gave us a high level of what that problem is. Can you kind of let us know from your perspective
Sure.
when we might have it solved?
So actually, that from our perspective is not a problem.
Okay.
And let me tell you what happened, and then you guys,
not at all?
it's not a problem at all. So here's where it stems from, though. Where it stems from is this, that if I write an estimate for this 2003 Honda with two parts, here they are. You see these two parts? If I send this order, I've just placed an order for these two parts. Now, if the supplier gets this order and changes this part number from you, this is a good example, to 1234, this information will go back into Ultimate. The problem is, what if, when this order has been placed, somebody goes in Ultimate and changes this part number to 1245 or deletes this tape stripe? They were expecting the part here to be deleted as well. And what I was explaining to them that cannot be done. Because this part has already been ordered. We can't delete a part that's on order. You have to return it, exactly. So, because the estimate now doesn't have a type stripe on it, and there's one on order, what we do is, if the estimate gets refreshed again, we add a flag here that says this part is now orphaned. That's where the misunderstanding was, which I'm supposed to talk to Lonnie and Tom later today. That's the thing we need to address.
That's not a bug.
It's not a bug. But because they thought this is a quote, what they were saying is, if we change this new to 1234, change it to other quote as well. And we can't do that. This is not a quote. This is just a procurement, which says, buy this part. If you want a quote, you can request a vault and then go ask, Keystone for a quote, which they will give you one, but that's a whole different, workflow.
Trainers, any questions to that?
If I don't want to send that stripe and it's just part of my inventory, then and we have the estimators put it on new, I just go ahead and got it.
Yeah. You click on all the parts and you can move them around. And the button for do not order, which already has 4 parts in it, is right here. So you can see all the parts that were moved to do not order. Paint materials. Some of these we move automatically because we know these are not parts. That's why they've already moved there.
Okay, so we can set those up. I wouldn't mind doing a trial setup, maybe Tuesday.
For sure. You guys have to do at least a few dozen of them. Yeah. Set up, get.
What do we need to get that make that happen on your end or our setup end?
So we can give us the name of the shop that you want to set up, and then we can give you access. All you need is that executable the MSI setup and in Mitchell. So one part that I can't help you with much is how this Mitchell Ultimate gets set up on the computers that has the Mitchell Parts button. That's the part that you guys need to work on and make sure this is done properly. That's the more difficult part. I showed you everything that's outside of Mitchell Ultimate, right? Back to my favorite diagram, everything that's happening outside is right here, right? I showed you, if you look at this diagram again, I showed you...
That seems like the simplest part, just identifying who their preferred vendors are. And if I understand right, it's just running the MSI, and that Mitchell Parts will come up in their Ultimate, and then it's really about going in and going through this particular tabs and doing the setup, right?
Sure.
So do you have a Mitchell account we can use? Yeah. Like data account? Yeah, we have an account. Yeah. You have a Mitchell, and I have that to analyze these two that can send out to them if they want to start with an Ultimate that doesn't have the Mitchell. That doesn't have the Mitchell Parts already. Yeah. That hasn't already been run. Yeah. And then we use the two trainer guys can get together Tuesday. So Bob, are you available Tuesday?
Depends on what time. I can take a look and help you guys.
No, Alex. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna. I don't know how much we'll need you for this.
Yeah, you guys should try to do this on your own and jot down all the problems you run into, if any, and then after you do it a few times, try to solve it on your own, and whatever you can, we'd be more than happy to help you go through that.
Yeah, that's how I think we should try it. Paul, are you available to come into the office Tuesday?
Yes, I am.
So why don't we we'll set something up for Tuesday, and Bob, let us know when you're available. We'll have you remote. Okay.
Bob, are we going to LA or are we going to be here?
Yes, well, we're waiting for Willis to give us that okay, because we were told that we'll probably be in LA, but he didn't go ahead yet to head that way.
Okay. I'll talk to him when he gets back.
All right, guys, I think we have everything you need. Sorry?
Okay. All right. I think it's been productive. Any questions for you, Kelly? No. My part. The piece we're missing not for next week, for the future though, and we'll have to figure out internally is actually getting them Mitchell Connect logins. How does that look? Who does it?
Yeah, that has to be resolved on your end, guys. I know very little about that.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Anybody any questions before we jump off? Cool. Thanks again, Alex.
Great question, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you paying this much attention today.
All the documents that you have that we might repurpose if you would. Probably have them, but the quicker we get them here would probably help us move along faster. So
no problem. I'll send you guys the onboarding and the supplier list, Willis. To Willis and Brian, both of you.
And Brian, pass it on to us too, Brian.
all right. Thanks, Bob.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.